Today we're gonna find out just how incorrectly you can build a fully functional gaming PC, starting by applying thermal paste underneath the CPU. Oh man, that feels so wrong. The goal of this video is not to simply break a computer, but instead to see just how many mistakes we can make and for it to still work. So if this computer does turn on by the end of this video, I feel like it should give you a lot of confidence to go out and just start building your first PC, if you still have any hesitation in doing so. For good measure, we'll apply some underneath the pins of this AM4 CPU as well. Next up, we are going to prep our motherboard by removing some of these VRM heat sinks. These little aluminum blocks right here, which if we get some pliers, uh-oh, I definitely just crushed a capacitor right there. Whoops. Well, just another thing to add to the list of what not to do. So these are just heat sinks. So they help dissipate some heat for these little components underneath them, which typically are the VRMs or voltage regulator modules. Those control how much power each component receives, and they can get pretty hot throughout that process, which is why, we use aluminum to help cool them down. And while there's certainly no reason to remove them, what happens if you did? All right, there we go. Now we have our fully exposed VRM, which means now let's install our RAM, which we would typically do to take advantage of dual channel. With 2 sticks of RAM, the traditional advice is to install them in slots 2 and 4 within your motherboard, which means we're not gonna do that. Instead, let's just install them in slots 1 and 2. Like that and like that. What else can we do incorrectly? Oh, speaking of prepping our motherboard, maybe we accidentally put our CMOS battery upside down. So this is the positive side, which should go on top, and this is the negative side. But what if we install it the wrong way? Just like that. That's certainly incorrect. All right, it's time to install our SSD. Specifically, we have an M.2 here, which means we're gonna put it inside of this little slot right here. Even the instructions here point this out. You insert the drive and then add this little screw to secure it down. What happens if you don't add the screw? So we're going to insert our M.2 as normal, and then we're just gonna leave it there. It may be unsecured, but honestly, I think it's still gonna work just fine. But time will tell. With those installed incorrectly, I wanna make a note with ideas for our other components as well. First things first, we do gotta add all our fans in the incorrect orientation, so there's a bunch of conflicting airflow. Second, we should install our GPU in the incorrect slot. And third, we should remove all of our motherboard standoffs, or I guess our case standoffs. Yeah, that should do the trick. Recently, I've been using today's video sponsor, Whisperflow, to dictate my ideas because it's so much faster than manually typing it all out. It also actually formats your voice to text in a way that makes sense. You can see numbered lists, punctuation, and the removal of filler words. This is the exact same dictation captured on my phone's built-in voice to text. As you can see, there's no formatting whatsoever. On top of that, Whisperflow works wherever you input text, and while I mainly use it in Notion to quickly jot down my ideas, it's also super helpful for composing emails in Gmail or even prompting your LLM of choice. You can dictate surprisingly intricate messages, and Whisperflow figures out exactly what you said, even if you bring your voice down to a whisper. Like, all right, that's pretty impressive. This is also the very first dictation tool that can accurately spell my brand yeaster paste without me having to manually teach it how to spell it. Based on the context of where you're typing, it'll pick up on the spelling of specific jargon and even names, helping this feel incredibly seamless directly out of the box. But I've also found this surprisingly useful for copy pastas and ASCII art. Now I can just say a single word, like Squidward, and an entire ASCII art will be pasted wherever I'm inputting text. This is thanks to the snippets feature that lets you tie a phrase to a set message. There's a lot of potential with this one. Whisperflow is by far the best voice to text tool that I've personally used, so I'll leave a link below so you can download it completely for free, and you can use code mryeester for a free month of Whisperflow Pro. But okay, time to install our CPU cooler incorrectly. But all right, it's time to install our cooler. Now, we are still going to apply thermal paste on top of the CPU as well, but we're also gonna do it in the most inefficient manner, which is applying the thermal paste as far away from the actual CPU die, which is typically in the middle of the processor. And then, you already know what's coming. We are not going to be removing the CPU cooler's warning sticker, meaning all the heat from the CPU is not only gonna have to go through that first layer of thermal paste, and then the CPU, and then this really inefficiently applied thermal paste, it's also gonna have to go through this plastic. And this is legitimately an error that happens way more often than you might think to PC builders. And so there we go. All right, now that the cooler's heatsink is applied, now we can install the fans in an incorrect orientation. Typically, if you have one fan on each side of your CPU cooler, you want them to blow air in the same direction, which is typically right to left, because when this is all inside of your case, you want to exhaust air this way. But instead, in this PC, we're gonna have these two fans be fighting each other. So this left fan will be blowing air to the right, and our right fan will be blowing air to the left. In effect, creating the worst airflow right around the CPU. This is definitely one of these PC building mistakes that's actually really easy to do, because A, it's not always super obvious which way air is gonna flow when you look at a fan, and B, nothing prevents you from making the mistake. Like, you can just install this incorrectly and you might never know, except for when your PC might overheat. Okay, so now you can see by these little arrows that air is flowing this way, but if we look at these arrows down here, air is flowing this way. So we have a conflict. That is not efficient. Okay, what next? This still just feels so weird. Honestly, seeing our 2 sticks of RAM like this also feels weird. Before I forget, I do also want to plug in our CPU cooler fans, which you would typically do by finding the CPU fan pins and plugging the header into that. But we are actually going to be plugging both of our CPU cooler fans into chassis pins, which should still give it power, but just less control than these CPU pins. So that's the first one, and there is the second one. Perfect. Well, not perfect, but perfect. Okay, I think it's time to start involving our case. Now, typically in the PC building process, the next step would be to take our motherboard and screw it down into the case's standoff. And the standoffs are these little guys right here. So obviously we are going to remove them. This is actually the part that I'm most nervous about breaking this entire computer, because although we've done a lot of weird things so far, none of them really put the computer at risk of electrical shorting. But this one does. Because part of the goal of these little standoffs is to lift the computer up so that it only makes contact with the case at those particular points. Because as you can see, this case is made out of metal, which does conduct electricity. So without any standoffs, that means the entire backside of the motherboard is just going to be sitting directly on metal. And if we look at the backside of our motherboard, well, it is just a printed circuit board, meaning all of these trace lines, all of these little patterns that you see carry current. And if electricity is able to jump from one of these to the other in a way that it's not expecting, well, that's gonna cause some trouble. So yeah, we'll see how this works. And while there's certainly no reasons to remove standoffs that are already installed in your case, some cases don't come with them pre-installed. Or if you happen to be using a size of motherboard that is not in the standard orientation, you're gonna have to add those yourself. So this is essentially simulating if you forget to do that. Now, the other consequence that removing the standoffs is going to cause is that now our motherboard is actually going to sit a little lower than the case is expecting. So we definitely will not be able to use an IO shield. It's just not gonna line up, making our PC much more prone to dust. All right, so now it's time to plop this bad boy down. Hope those traces don't get immediately shorted out. The question also is, are we able to screw down our motherboard at all? Since the standoffs were the things that had the threads inside of them. Otherwise, these are just holes in the case. We're gonna give it a shot. Okay, yeah, that's not catching anything. We're just gonna try to grab a bigger screw. Oh, okay, good news. We found a few screws large enough to actually catch on those case holes. So now our motherboard is hanging on with a little more than hopes and prayers. Nice. Now it's time to install our GPU. Oh, what was that? I don't know. Now, while typically we want to install our GPU in the topmost PCIe slot, that is not what we're gonna do today. So we're gonna find the lowest one down here. Now I know this has kind of changed in more modern motherboards, but typically the topmost PCIe slot has the most bandwidth, which is typically why you want your GPU in that slot. So while the top slot might be like a PCI X16, the lower one, depending on your motherboard, might be like an X8 or an X4. And so in this build, we're gonna put that GPU in that bottom slot. I'm also not gonna replace these other PCIe covers because why not? We're going for the open airflow, just like there's no IO shield. Which means now it's time for the cable management. And since I do want this computer to actually have a fighting chance of turning on, I am actually gonna plug in everything correctly. Although one thing I am gonna do is plug the reset header into the power pins and the power header into the reset pins, just to kind of mix things up. Meaning that now our power button won't actually do anything when the PC is not turned on. All right guys, it's time for the moment of truth. Do you think this PC will actually turn on? Because, I mean, we've done so much wrong with it. To recap, first of all, we applied thermal paste underneath the CPU, which you should definitely never do. We then removed the VRM heatsinks from the motherboard, installed the CMOS battery upside down, installed our 2 sticks of RAM in slots 1 and 2 to throw away dual channel. We failed to screw down our M.2 SSD, failed to remove the sticker from our CPU cooler, made it so that our CPU cooler fans are contradicting one another, removed all the standoffs from the case so our motherboard is just sitting right against all the metal, installed our GPU in the bottommost PCIe slot, and finally flip-flopped our power and reset buttons. Which means now it's time to see if this computer has any chance of functioning. Also, we're not adding any case fans. And the final incorrect step we will take when building this PC is plugging our HDMI into our motherboard. Yeah, just like that.
Now, just because something fits in the hole doesn't mean it belongs there. Something you've been told many, many times.
All right, let's see if this turns on. If it does, I don't want to hear you ever say that you have no confidence in building your first PC. But here we go. Moment of truth. Remember, we can't press the power button, we need to press the reset button. Our CPU fans are spinning, our GPU did light up, but will we actually get a signal? I'm actually not sure what to expect. Oh, it just shut off. Is it gonna recycle? Oh, it did recycle. I'm realizing now that we used an AM4 CPU, which does not have integrated graphics. So I do think we actually do need to plug our HDMI into our GPU. Okay, let's try that. Okay, it's time to see if the world's most incorrect PC will actually function. We have our CPU fan spinning, we have our GPU lighting up, but again, can we get a signal? This is suspenseful. Oh my gosh, this computer actually still works. We got to BIOS. Although I have honestly never seen this in my life. This is the boot screen, which I'm slowly uncovering by moving the mouse. What is this? Okay, let's see what it reads. We have the Ryzen 3 1200, that's the CPU used. You can see the 2 sticks of RAM in slot 1 and 2 as opposed to 2 and 4. Although now my question is it reading this drive that is installed, well, kind of half installed? Let's see if we can find out. Our peripherals also just work, which is really cool. You can also see that our CPU fan is not available because we didn't plug our fan into those pins, but you can see that our chassis 1 and chassis 2 are being read. Okay, interesting. So here we can see that our M.2 is not actually being detected, meaning this guy is it's not doing much. Let's try resetting the computer. Okay, after a restart, dude, okay, so we are able to plug in a USB bootable Windows device. And it's actually functioning. We could set this up as a legitimate computer. While this is very clearly not an optimal PC, the fact that it works at all is mind-blowing to me. And like I said, I feel like this should give you a lot of confidence to go out and start your first build. If you're on the fence about PC building being too hard or worried about breaking components, of course you should be careful, but also you can make a lot of mistakes and still have the PC function. Like, we did almost everything I can possibly imagine wrong in this PC, and we still got it to boot. Computer parts are just so resilient, it's absurd. So that's all I have for you today. Hope you enjoyed watching. I've been Mr. Yeaster, your tech tinkerer, and I'll catch you in the next one. Oh yeah.